Hi, true avatars, and welcome to your weekly queer video game podcast. This is episode 67, and I am your host, Zoe Wild. I am a transgender and bisexual woman, and my pronouns are she, her. Welcome to 2026. This week it's just me. I wasn't actually going to record an episode this week. I kind of made a whole Blue Sky tweet or whatever you want to call it. Skeets. I think Skeets a terrible name for the record, but anyway. I did a whole post about on Blue Sky about how I was going to not record this week, and I was going to wait till next week. And then there was news that I really felt like I should talk about it. And I wanted to be clear, like I really wanted to talk about it. But if you can believe this, actually, I'm going to shame all my fellow regulars here. No one else here plays the game that we're going to be talking about this series. I'm the only one on the entire group of us that plays this game. So anyway, we're going to talk about what that game is very shortly. I'm sure I have you intrigued, although if you're clicking on this episode already and listening to it, you probably saw the title of the episode, which has clued you in. But yeah, I'm here. It's 2026. I missed last week because I was traveling. I didn't even promote episode 66, and it's one of the most popular episodes I've ever recorded, which is really nice. But yeah, speaking of missing weeks though, I am going to be traveling quite a bit, in the coming months, I guess. I have a trip in February. I have a trip in March. There'll probably be more trips after that. Didn't travel a lot when I was young, so I don't feel too weird about traveling a lot this year. But that does mean that there might be some weeks where there's no new episodes. It does pain me actually a little bit to kind of miss a week or two here and there, but the thing is that I will try to get an episode out if I can get something pre-recorded, like in advance, like an interview or a segment, something that is like kind of evergreen or timeless or not like dedicated to that week. Yeah, I don't really know right now what those weeks are going to look like where I'm traveling. But if I'm back in Toronto, I will definitely do my best to record. Yeah, I think I've got stuff going on in my life, some new stuff going on that I'm not going to talk about on the podcast, at least right now. However, I definitely was overloading myself with the podcast last year a little bit. It was getting a little too, not that I wasn't enjoying it, but it was getting a little bit much for me. And taking a few weeks at the end of December there where I wasn't recording. I basically haven't had any time to play video games. It's either like some weeks it's literally set up for the podcast and record the podcast and edit it, or play video games. And this is a video game podcast. And I would like to play more games. So I also have to kind of think about time management and stuff like that too. So yeah, there might just be a few less episodes this year, but this podcast will still be around. There's lots happening still. So lots to talk about. Lots to discuss. Lots of news still happening. Like, news didn't really slow down over the Christmas break. I don't understand why not. But, yeah, okay, so actually let's get into it then. So, because this episode does not have a segment. This episode is just news. I decided I'm going to catch up on most, but not all, but most of the news from December and some of the big news from this week as well. It was just like, well, if I'm going to talk about one thing, I might as well talk about a bunch of things, if I'm going to record. So anyway, so some of the headlines actually, let's just get into the headlines. I haven't recorded in a month. This is why I'm like, my brain's all scattered right now. But yeah, so it's just the news this week. I'll be back next week with guests. We'll have a segment. We'll have news. We'll talk about what we've been playing. There's a few like weekly little check-in things we're going to be doing this year as well, which is kind of fun. So, but yeah, this week, just me, just news. Some of the headlines this week. Netflix is buying Warner Brothers Pictures, and that includes the games division. Fortnite is collaborating with She Who Must Not Be Named. More video games are getting movie adaptations, if you can believe it or not. Clair Obscur won another major award, and then it got disqualified for reasons I'll get into. And then there were 2 ratings leaks for queer games that are coming out. So first off, there is a new Sims 4 expansion coming. And then also, this is the game I was mentioning earlier. The reason I'm recording today is that Life is Strange Reunion, that's Life is Strange 5, leaked, and Chloe is back. Plus, there's a whole bunch more headlines. So, we're going to get into that in just a second, but I do have a few quick favors to ask of you, true avatars, as I always do. If you like this podcast, please leave a comment, rating, or review on your preferred podcast platform. Spotify has ratings and comments, while Apple has reviews. Engagement like comments, ratings, and reviews helps to grow the podcast, and a growing podcast means a happy podcast host who is forever happy and fulfilled that you enjoy listening to her show. Which creates an infinite feedback loop of more podcast episodes and more growth and more happiness. So please, go leave a comment, rating, or review. If you're watching the video version on YouTube, please like this episode, leave a comment, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you're the first to know when a brand new video drops. Also, Please follow True Avatars, a queer video game podcast, on social media. There are accounts on Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Facebook, and TikTok at True Avatars. And you can also find the podcast on the official website, trueavatarspodcast.com, no spaces. And remember, this is a weekly queer video game podcast, so check in every week. I'm going to bring you news, interviews, and updated discussions that are relevant to queer gamers, so you have a safe space to check in on the world of gaming from a 2S LGBTQIA+ lens. And once again, you're hearing why I almost never say the acronym, and I always say queer. It's so much easier for me to say queer than the whole acronym every time. I just stumble over it. Alright, True Avatars, like I said, there's quite a bit of news. Relative to the entirety of December, aside from the Game Awards and a couple other things we did talk about, there wasn't like a ton of news, but there was still a little more news than I was expecting over the Christmas break. So I figured let's just get ahead of it all. Let's talk about some of the major headlines, because there's lots of good ones too. There's some bad news, but a lot of good news too. And the first one is our headline of the whole episode. And we're going to talk about Life is Strange Reunion. Okay, so this is the 5th mainline Life is Strange game. All right, so for anyone who hasn't been following, there's Life is Strange, there's Life is Strange 2, Life is Strange True Colors, which is the 3rd game, Life is Strange Double Exposure, which is the 4th game, which I did talk about at length early on when I started this podcast. Spoiler alert, I did not like it. Great queer representation, but terrible game otherwise. And then there's this new one, Reunion. And also, there are 2 other like spin-off-y, prequel-y kind of games. So there's Life is Strange Before the Storm, which is a direct prequel to the first Life is Strange. And there is also a free-to-play kind of like prequel side story thing called Captain Spirit. That is a lead-in to the 2nd game. And actually, Life is Strange 2 is the only game I haven't played because the vibes are significantly less lesbian than the other games. Yeah, that's the only reason I've gone to play it. It's just, there's a boy protagonist. And at the time when I had a chance to play it, I just wasn't really like into that. I was like really trying to avoid games with boy protagonists. I did pick it up on a sale recently. And someday when I have time to play video games, I'm going to jump into Life is Strange 2. Maybe in the lead up to Life is Strange Reunion, actually, that might be a good one to do. But anyway, so you're probably thinking, Zoe, if you're saying this Life is Strange game leaked, why are you talking about it? You don't talk about leaks. No, I do not. Unless the leak comes from a ratings board. Because rating boards really don't lie. Sometimes, yeah, mistakes happen and stuff like that, but it's not like it's a false alarm. If this game doesn't come out, it's for a different reason than Peggy made it up or whatever. And Peggy, for anyone who doesn't know, is the European Ratings Board, and they had a listing show up on their website. It has since been taken down for Life is Strange Reunion. And I did see the listing. I didn't link it in the show notes, but I did link a screenshot of it through the Video Games Chronicle article, which does cover the game. But so yeah, like I said, ratings leaks, they can be inaccurate occasionally, on very rare occasions. Like sometimes there are errors, things change or get canceled before an announcement or a release happens. There was one time a game I was waiting for did get a rating. When on PS4 they were doing a lot of PS2 backwards compatible digital ports of games. And this included Rockstar's Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition. It did get a rating on the SRB website for PS4, and it never ended up surfacing ever. I think this was probably back in, I want to say 2016, 2017, 2018, long time ago, and the game just never came out, which is kind of a bummer because I've been itching to play that specific Midnight Club game for a while. It's the one I grew up with. My brother and I spent a lot of time playing that game. It's basically GTA without all the shooting and weirdness. It's just like open world cars and driving and races. It's really fun. Anyway, so that game didn't end up surfacing. Although I have to imagine the game was ready for release, but something stopped it from releasing. Maybe they found a last minute bug. Maybe they decided they didn't want to release it. Who knows? So this Life is Strange Reunion game, it's possible it won't come out, but given that it leaked on a ratings board, it got taken down, and also it had a release date listed, which is March 27th, 2026, which is only 2.5 months away from time of recording, which is pretty exciting. So, let's talk about the game itself. Now, usually ratings boards don't really leak a ton of information. It's usually just like censorship, not censorship stuff, but just things like warnings, like content warnings, basically. But anyway, this listing does have a brief outline of the game, and I'm going to read that for you now. So, Chloe Price was Max Caulfield's partner in time. Losing her is Max's greatest regret. Now, Chloe has come to Caledon University. Haunted by nightmares and impossible memories, Chloe needs Max's help. But Max is already in crisis. In 3 days, a deadly inferno will engulf or destroy the campus. So, I'm going to do my best not to spoil the end of Double Exposure if you haven't played it. If that's something you're interested in playing, I feel like you might need to at least watch a recap of it on YouTube or read a recap somewhere like on Wikipedia, wherever, to get a sense of where this game is going. So, but I will say that at the beginning of the game, you find out that Max, basically you get to pick which timeline from the end of the first Life is Strange game. So for anyone who doesn't know, at the end of that game, there's also a choice you have to make. I am going to spoil the first game as well. This is kind of important. This is kind of why we're talking about this game at all. So, at the end, you can either choose to save Chloe or save Arcadia Bay, the town where the game takes place in. It's called the Bay and the Bay timeline. So Bay meaning Arcadia Bay, B-A-Y, or Bay, B-A-E, which was a slang term for someone, a term of endearment slang about 10 years ago for anyone who doesn't remember that. Maybe most people do. I don't know what my demographics are listening to this because I have no data on that, despite the service I use telling me I'm supposed to have data like that. So anyway, so at the end of that game, you make that choice, and then whatever thing you choose, it's like the very end of the game, so it doesn't really matter which one is canon. The other games don't really acknowledge which ending is canon. However, Double Exposure at the very beginning of the game does ask you which ending you picked. And that just determines whether or not you're getting text messages from Chloe throughout the game. Max and Chloe have broken up in the Bay ending, B-A-E. If you chose that, they've broken up. They're texting a little bit, but if you choose the ending where Chloe died, there are no text messages from Chloe, and I guess there's no story that they broke up. She just doesn't exist. I have to assume that this new game, given that Chloe has quote unquote impossible memories, means that she is currently, the game takes place in the timeline where she died, or I don't know where she lived, but she has memories that should not have happened because of the other ending of the game. So maybe there's some multiversal shenanigans happening there, but I'm only speculating. But it does, it sounds like it does take place pretty much right where Double Exposure left off. It takes place at a university. Max is in university. There is another thing going on. There is more power shenanigans going on. Again, I'm trying not to spoil too much about the ending, but the ending does feel very Avengers-y, where they're kind of setting up a timeline or a story where all the characters in the series with different powers might coexist together. We don't see any characters from 2 or 3, but there's a new character in 4 who's important to the story. That is a minor spoiler, but I have to assume that the fire that's going to destroy the campus, this inferno, has to do with the fact that there is someone else on campus running around doing something. Again, try not to spoil too much, but there are minor spoilers here. But if you are interested in Double Exposure, I do recommend picking it up on a sale if there are any decent sales on it. The first half of the game is really, really good. It's really, really interesting. But it really, really falls flat once the twist is revealed. I didn't like it. You can also just go back and listen to the episode. It was very early on. I want to say it was probably somewhere in the span of episode 5 to 8, I want to say. It's in the title of the episode too, so if you scroll back that far back to 2024 and you find that episode, it will say Life is Strange in the title, and you'll know that there's a few other games in that title as well, or like topics. It's kind of like one of those titles I do where I list a bunch of different topics. But yeah, I wasn't really a fan of the ending. It felt, first off, the ending wasn't strong. It was very kind of wishy-washy and just weak. The storytelling didn't really come together. And then to top it all off, there was basically an Avengers level twist. I'm talking superheroes and Max Caulfield will return was literally how the game ended. It said that on screen, I'm pretty sure. I think anyway. Maybe I'm misremembering. I did read someone saying that online, so I hope that's correct. I don't remember that part, but I do remember finishing the game and rolling credits thinking wow, they're really trying to make this an Avengers universe instead of just this low-key lesbian vibe game. But anyway, I will say, if they are doing that kind of thing where all these characters with powers exist, if they're just going to do that, I hope they lean right into it and bring all the characters back. If you're going to do that and have these crossovers, but I have a feeling they're backtracking on that ending, and now even though they're probably still tying in the ending of Double Exposure and that other character, but I think they're going to be focusing mainly on Max and Chloe's relationship, which is for anyone who doesn't know, that's the bread and butter of the first Life is Strange game. It's why people love the series so much, is because Max and Chloe was such a big, important part of that game. It's the main part of that game, that their relationship, their love story, their friendship, all of it, all that is very important. And so people were kind of upset to find out that they had broken up and that there was no real appearance of Chloe in the last game. So I think they're not going to do the crossover with all the characters, or if they do, it might be a kind of a throwaway thing. Whereas I think they're just going to kind of like course correct a little bit. They'll follow up on that ending, but like kind of as a backdrop to the narrative. But I think again, the focus here is going to be Max and Chloe. In fact, it sounds like maybe Chloe is playable in this game. I can't remember if she's playable in the original Life is Strange too much, but I know she's playable in Before the Storm. So I guess we'll have to see really what the game hasn't been revealed yet officially from Square Enix, and to be honest, I'm not sure. There's a bunch of games that are like heavily rumored or heavily like being hinted at that are supposed to be coming before the end of the fiscal year. And the fiscal year for most companies, for most video game companies, is the end of March. And so there's like a bunch of games that are supposed to be coming out that we just don't know about. I'm pretty sure Nintendo probably has a game scheduled for March that we don't know about either. I know we've got Mario Tennis Fever coming. There are potential games from Ubisoft that are apparently rumored. Again, I'm not going to start talking about those because those are still not completely verified, but if those games are coming out, I don't know where we're going to hear about all these games. I think it's really strange that these games are due out within the next 2.5 months and we don't know about them. I'm all for games for being announced and released really closely, like a really short window between announcement and release, but I think 2.5 months is about pushing it at that point, unless you're going to shadow drop it. Maybe they are waiting to shadow drop this. There are some rumblings that there was a lot of development trouble on this, just like the last game, Double Exposure. Maybe they just want to kind of push this out and forget about it. I'm not going to get into all that here because again, it's unverified information. But you're welcome to like look up the rumors yourself and see what's been said. And if that stuff is true, then I can see why they kind of want to push this out the door. Hopefully not, though. Hopefully it turns out really well. Like, I really do hope this game is good. And if this is, like, if they're going to follow up on Max and Chloe, at least do it in a nice, respectful, tasteful, strong way. And then maybe if there's a Life is Strange 6, then we can move on and go back to the anthology structure where we meet new characters with new powers. And we don't have to keep coming back to Max and Chloe. As much as I know fans really want to see them, and that includes me. I really do think, again, Double Exposure just left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't really know that I want to see them kind of get back together. I mean, I do want to see them get back together. I just, again, it left such a bad taste in my mouth at the beginning of the last game to find out that Chloe wasn't really going to be present, even though that, like, again, she's texting Max throughout the game. Like, you can read their text messages about their breakup and stuff, and it's just kind of like, it feels like fan service and not in a good way, more like, well, we have to appease people who want to hear about Max and Chloe if we're doing another Max game. I think they could have literally not had Max be the character in this game. Choose a different character who's a photographer and have it be, like, I would have been okay with that because Max has new powers in Double Exposure. Or they could have made the other character with powers the main character. Again, there's lots of options here, but they didn't do that. They obviously chose Max because Max is marketable, Max is popular, but Max is really only popular because she's one half of the coin. So, yeah, and also too, I know a lot of people aren't big fans of True Colors and Before the Storm. I really liked Before the Storm. I really like True Colors. I really like all of Don't Nod's entries. I haven't played Life is Strange 2, but they did do they did 2 other similar games. They did Lost Records Bloom and Rage, which came out last year. The middle of that game isn't super strong, but the beginning and endings are really, really good, and I really like them. And also they did Tell Me Why, which is phenomenal. That game is basically, if you like Life is Strange 1 and 2, but you're not a fan of Before the Storm or True Colors or Double Exposure, Tell Me Why is basically, Life is Strange 3 in all but name. It's also a little bit shorter. It's only 3 chapters instead of 5, but it's really good. And for a while there, Xbox was giving it's like Xbox exclusive. I think it's also on PC, but it's not on PlayStation or Switch. But it has been given away for free during Pride Month a ton of times. I don't think it has the last couple of years, unfortunately, but if they ever give it away for free again, claim it, play it. It's amazing. It might also be on Game Pass. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm really, really, really excited for this, for the possibilities presented with this new Life is Strange game. These kinds of games, whenever they come out, they're super queer at the very least. So I do think we're in for a lot of queerness. A lot of good queer vibes, even if the story isn't super strong, but I do hope the queer vibes are good and the story is good too. Okay, so that pretty much covers that. I want to move on to a couple of headlines here. I guess this is technically not good news, but this is part of the good news segment. I don't know why I included it here, but for a while I've been talking about Baldur's Gate 3. I'm waiting for a discount or a Switch 2 version. The discount this year was also the same as last year, so again, I don't have time to play it, so it's not a big enough discount for me to jump in, but I was going to pick up a physical copy on Switch 2 and play it there if it did come to Switch 2. Unfortunately, it is not coming to Switch 2. Possibly ever. That is up to people that are not Larian, because in a Reddit Ask Me Anything, an AMA, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a trend on Reddit for creators to go on Reddit, create a thread, and let people ask any question they want, and they will answer them. And so, a whole bunch of people from Larian, the developers behind Baldur's Gate 3, didn't ask me anything. Mostly focused on the new Divinity. I think probably in response to all the AI shenanigans that's going on there. Keep saying the word shenanigans today. I think it's like a very stress-free version of BS. And I'm also trying not to swear on the episode. But a user named DarkY asked Larian, Baldur's Gate 3 for Switch 2, is it even possible? And Sven Vinka answered, we would have loved to, but it wasn't our decision to make. So, it's not happening. And Insider Nate the Hate 2, who's very successfully leaked a whole bunch of Nintendo stuff in the last year, said on Twitter, this is the unfortunate truth. While Larian would love to bring Baldur's Gate 3 to the Switch 2, their relationship with Hasbro/Wizards of the Coast is not healthy. So, maybe Hasbro/Wizards of the Coast, they can find someone to port the game to Switch 2, although I would have preferred that Larian finished the job, and because they know the game inside and out, it'd probably be a stronger port if they worked on it, but maybe if fans ask for it, that relationship can be paved over just enough to get that Switch 2 port out. I do think it's a loss of money for them, for both the publisher, or at least Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, and as well as Larian too, but I guess if it's not coming to Switch 2, I'm going to aim for the PC version so I can play it on my Steam Deck. When it goes on sale for a little bit more than, I think 25% is the most they've done. I'm hoping for 40 to 50%. Again, because I don't have time to play it, so I don't want to spend full price on a game that's just going to sit in my backlog for a while. However, there is a tiny bit of good news with this, is that over the holidays, Divinity Original Sin 2, Definitive Edition, I think it's called, did get an update for next-gen consoles, which included Switch 2. So that game now has a native Switch 2 port, if you are interested in playing a game from Larian with those vibes. Alright, this headline is a triple whammy, because there are a whole bunch of video game adaptations in the works. First off, Fallout Season 3, it starts filming this May. Season 2 filmed from November 2024 and took roughly 6 months, and then came out 7 months after that. So expect Season 3 to come out spring 2027, which is what I predicted last year on the podcast. So even if filming feels like it's starting soon, because it does feel like May is very short turnaround, because I think the season ends in February, which means they're still finishing editing it, probably, if I had to guess. It's still not coming out that much sooner. It's still a year and a half for turnaround for every new season. Which is good. At least it's consistent. So it's not a whole long wait, but it is more than the usual year that TV shows used to be. Also, Paramount is releasing an untitled Sonic spin-off movie on December 22nd, 2028. This is not to be confused with Sonic 4, Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which is releasing on March 19th, 2027. So about a year and a half after Sonic 4 comes out, they're going to be releasing a spin-off movie. They have not said what it is going to be, but I'm actually wondering if it's Sonic 4 Episode 1 coming out on March 19th, 2027, and then December 22nd, 2028, the spin-off is actually Sonic 4 Episode 2. I'm pausing for laughter because I know that's really, really funny. I wrote that. I sat there and I had my keyboard and I thought, this is genius. This is the best joke I've ever written. Anyway, finally, the third adaptation here that I'm going to be mentioning is that a Helldivers movie is coming from Sony. Justin Lin is the director. For anyone who doesn't know, Justin Lin directed the original Saw movie. He directed Furious 7, and he directed both Aquaman movies. And the writer is Gary Doberman. He wrote a whole bunch of horror movies like the It movies and all 3 Annabelle movies. Sometimes writing, a lot of horror writers and directors end up moving into action. So I'm not too worried about the writing there. I think Gary Doberman is hit or miss as a writer. I really like, the Annabelle movie. Well, I like the Annabelle movies, but I know some of the Annabelle movies aren't as particularly strong. But if you are into horror and you haven't seen any of the Annabelle movies, but you like the Conjuring universe, I do highly recommend, Annabelle Creation. It is a very, very, very cool prequel, to the Annabelle story. If you've seen the first Conjuring with the Annabelle doll, if you want more of that, it's a movie set I think in the late 40s, early 50s, and it is downright creepy. It is awesome. I highly recommend that movie. Also, the first It movie is also really, really good. It Chapter 2, not so much. But again, when Gary Oldman hits, he hits. Same with Justin Lin. I wasn't a fan of Aquaman. I thought it was kind of crap. But I really like Saw. Furious 7 was pretty good too. Anyway, from the article, this comes from The Hollywood Reporter. Lin is not a gamer and leaned into that as a strength when pitching his take on the material, said insiders. He aims to find the humanity in the characters, and again, this is Helldivers, and weave timely themes into the story while building out a world and mythology. There are plenty of details waiting to be drawn in, something that is compelling to the filmmaker. So, Lin not being a gamer, that could go either way. There's a lot of times where I think people who are not familiar with source material F it up. I'm thinking of game adaptations like Detective Pikachu. I'm thinking of an animation adaptation, like The Last Airbender, where the people who were making these things were not fans, but they were like parents of fans, and they were like, oh, well, my kids like this, so this will be easy, and then they completely muck it up. Detective Pikachu was pretty bad. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that. I know a lot of people disagree with me, especially in my own circle of friends, but I'm sorry, neo-noir Pokemon is not what I want from a Pokemon movie. I want Spielberg meets Studio Ghibli in live action with very cute, well-animated creatures, which is the only thing that Detective Pikachu had going for it, was well-animated designs for the Pokemon. All right, let's hope the Helldivers movie does not suffer from Justin Lin not being a fan. All right, the next headline here is Deltarune Chapter 5 is on track for this year, and that's almost word for word what Toby Fox wrote on Twitter to announce that Chapter 5 of Deltarune is still coming out this year. He also expects the team to start focusing on Chapter 6 soon, which is exciting. I do wonder if each chapter is being developed in a way that they'll release a new one each year, finishing with Chapter 7 in 2028. I was listening to another podcast, I think it was The Besties, where they were talking about how maybe there might be more chapters after Chapter 7. I don't know. Part of me is a little bit stressed with the idea that the game will keep going, because I'm itching to play it and I don't want to wait too long, but also, like, it's really nice when the game kind of has its own focus and has, like, a game plan, like, okay, we're only doing 7 chapters, but again, if it's only, like, an extra chapter on top of Chapter 7, then sure, like, whatever, it's not too many, but if it's, like, this never-ending thing where it's going to keep going, then, like, I'm only going to play it when it's out, so I guess I'm just waiting longer for that. I like complete stories with endings. I don't like TV shows that go on and on forever. I like it when things are mapped out, franchises are mapped out, stories are mapped out, so I do hope whatever story that Toby Fox has mapped out at least is going to be told over however many chapters he actually has planned, and it doesn't kind of overstay its welcome, and maybe that's what fans want. I don't know. I'm not a Deltarune fan. I wasn't a big Undertale fan either, but I've heard really good things about Deltarune, so as soon as it's complete, I'm going to pick up what will probably be a very nice physical copy, and I will play it then. Speaking though of popular indie queer games that get lots of updates, Stardew Valley got a free update for Nintendo Switch 2, and it's like an official Nintendo Switch 2 edition. This released everywhere but Europe as far as I know. Unfortunately, however, if you haven't jumped into it, there are a few bugs making gameplay a little difficult for players, so ConcernedApe is addressing those as soon as possible before releasing the Switch 2 patch in Europe. He wrote on Twitter, "If you are playing on NS2 version right now, be aware that crafting any of the below recipes may cause unexpected items in your inventory to be consumed. If you do craft these, empty your inventory of everything except the required ingredients, and don't use the workbench." So I am going to just quickly here read what items here. It says craft with caution: bluegrass starter, heavy furnace, deluxe worm bin, fish smoker, mushroom log. And I'm just going to take a sip of water here. Sorry, that's mushroom log, speed grow, treasure totem, statue of blessings, deluxe bait, challenge bait, and moss soup. So again, if you are going to use those craft with those items, remove everything else from your inventory, lest you consume other items that you don't plan to in your inventory. There's no date for when this will be fixed. If you haven't updated to the Switch 2 version, keep playing the Switch 1 version. It's fine. It's just the Switch 2 version. I think if you're living in Europe, you're fine. You can't even claim it yet, so. Alright, so I do have some bad news headlines to get into here. First up, Fortnite has made a deal with J.K. Rowling to bring Harry Potter into Fortnite, only 6 months after it neglected to bring back its annual Pride content. So, Harry Potter Cosmetics were introduced into Fortnite, but unfortunately we did not get the returning, admittedly minimal, Pride cosmetics. LGBTQ plus cosmetics, to be more specific. For anyone who doesn't know, the article does summarize She Who Must Not Be Named's BS. And I'm reading here, since coming out about her feelings on transgender people in 2020, Rowling has been vocal in her hatred for trans people and pushed for legislation against gender-affirming care and social support for trans people. Her cultural weight as a celebrity combined with her funding of campaigns has meant that she has been able to do substantial harm to the trans community. Rowling will undoubtedly receive substantial royalties from the Fortnite skins, just as she will for the upcoming HBO TV series. That money will likely be funneled into her hate campaign against trans people. Again, I'm reading from the article here. If she wants to sue me right now for reading this, again, I'm quoting an article. I'm not claiming this myself, but if she is listening here, you are a bitch. Okay, this is old news at this point, but we haven't covered the Netflix buyout of Warner Brothers yet. This actually happened almost pretty much a month ago. I think it happened well before the Game Awards. But Netflix came out and said, so anyone who doesn't know, Netflix is buying Warner Brothers, not Discovery, just they're separating Warner Brothers and Discovery out, and Warner Brothers Pictures is getting bought by Netflix for $83 billion. And Netflix came out and said that the games part of the WB business was basically inconsequential and didn't contribute much to the price of the $83 billion offer. From Kotaku. They wrote, Netflix co-CEO Gregory Peters told investors that when it came to Warner's gaming division, it didn't even factor it into the $83 billion deal. It was apparently considered to add nothing to the company's overall value because, quote, they're relatively minor compared to the grand scheme of things, unquote. So, obviously that's kind of a crappy devaluation of their games. Even if I'm not a fan of Genital Ward's Legacy, to be clear, but that game was very successful, with the team of developers, that like deserve credit for what they did, regardless of whether or not you agree with it. There are a lot of dev teams at Warner Brothers that haven't been laid off, although many have, that make excellent games. And even the games that aren't great, like they still have dev teams behind them, right? Dev teams that, have families that need jobs and all kinds of stuff. And again, the quality of these games, the value of these games, your perception of these games doesn't matter. These are games that are being made. These are dev studios that, deserve to be able to make games, at least under Warner Brothers, as far as, that have been around for a long time. So for Netflix to say they're worthless seems wrong to me, but maybe compare, I don't know. I don't know how they came to that, conclusion. I do think this buyout is bad, and I really wish Warner Brothers would stay independent. I think as we see the next decade and a half go on, as long as we're seeing in the mid 1900s, there was a big push for separation of different entities. A lot of things got spun off, a lot of things got separated to prevent monopolies from forming. We're seeing these monopolies quickly come back. Disney bought Fox. There's been a whole bunch of buyouts. Obviously, Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard King. And now we're seeing Netflix buy Warner Brothers. And it's very stressful to see this happening. Again, Netflix is the lesser of two evils. Paramount is also trying to buy Warner Brothers, and they have Saudi Arabia backing from the Public Investment Fund, as far as I know. And obviously that's the greater of two evils, but I would prefer Warner Brothers stay independent because Netflix, this is selfish, but I like physical media. And Netflix has said F you to Blu-rays, DVDs, 4Ks, physical media of all kinds. Occasionally something slips through the cracks and gets released, but for the most part, most Netflix content does not come to disc. And I'm worried that if they buy Warner Brothers, not only will they not release new movies from Warner Brothers going forward, but also that theaters are going to die an even quicker death because Netflix doesn't really release anything in theaters either. So, also, stuff like Harry Potter is going to be under Netflix too. That's a really big property, and I really don't. I mean, Netflix already owns a lot. Netflix is already kind of a monopoly in its own right with a streaming service, and then to have stuff like, first off, have big IPs, but also then, if I do get Netflix again, I'm gonna have to see Harry Potter flashed across my screen once again. So again, very selfish reasons here, but I think it's bad for the consumer that this is happening. I think all this consolidation is bad for the consumers, ultimately. Canada has a lot of monopolies and oligarchies already, up here. So we're kind of a little bit used to it, unfortunately, but seeing it happen everywhere, it just means that, like, with no competition, costs are going to keep going up too. Like, this isn't going to, consolidation is going to bring costs down because, oh, well, all this is under one umbrella now. No, Netflix is going to be like, well, we bought Warner Brothers, everything costs more. Microsoft has laid off tons of people too. There's going to be layoffs too. Oh my God, layoffs. I'm so numb to the layoffs at this point because I read about them every week. I report on them every week when I can, but there's going to be layoffs too. You just know there's going to be layoffs. Another merger that happened was Amazon bought MGM, which was also unfortunate. Amazon has not completely killed physical media off, although they have outsourced a lot of it to, you guessed it, Warner Brothers. So, I did pick up a couple Warner Brothers releases that I had been holding out on for a while last year. If you are a physical media collector and there's stuff you want from Warner Brothers, I'm not trying to create FOMO, and again, it might be a little while before any of this happens, but if there is stuff that you want in physical media that is either coming out or has been released and you want it, I would consider picking it up if you can. I don't know how much longer that stuff is going to be in print, because a lot of stuff from Fox and a lot of Disney stuff too is now out of print after Disney, established Disney Plus and bought Fox and all that stuff. So, like right now I'm looking for a Blu-ray copy of 10 Things I Hate About You. And it's like the lowest price I can find in Canada is $35 for what used to be a dirt cheap Blu-ray. Just never got around to picking it up. Now it's out of print. Now it's very expensive. And I do see that this is a possibility for Warner Brothers, especially since Warner Brothers has some niche titles from Warner Archive Collection. Anyway, this isn't video game related. This is movie related. But anyway, I'm getting carried away. This is a bad thing that's happening, and I really hope that Netflix doesn't kill off the Warner Brothers game division. But I do think Netflix will probably be folding these devs into their own fold, and we might even see Netflix creating their own kind of Game Pass thing where they have more AAA games to play through their service that are entirely streamed. No downloads, you'd have to stream them the same way you stream, the same way you can currently stream some of their games right now on the app. I wonder if they might fold those Warner Brothers games into it and also have these dev teams work on brand new AAA games that are exclusive to Netflix's service. Again, not owning games, that's also great. I'm very excited for that. Alright, I'm just gonna take a sip of water here because I have been rambling on my soapbox all day. Okay. So, this is some juicy bad news. Very juicy. And I'm sure at this point you've probably heard about it because it was big news, but I want to talk about it anyway. Okay, just took my sip of water. The Indie Game Awards had a lot of queer nominees, but sadly not many queer game winners. So, gonna get to the juicy part at the end here. But some of the queer games that won. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 won debut game. Maddie Thorson, the creator behind Celeste, won the Mohammed Fahmy Storyteller Award. Hades 2 and Date Everything were among the community picks. Gabby DiRienzo, one of the devs behind Seasonal Cemetery, won the Vanguard class of 2025. I did talk about Seasonal Cemetery back last June, I think. It's a free game. It's entirely free. It's on Steam right now. And you're basically exploring a cemetery. It's a very cozy vibes. But depending on the time of the year that you play, the season of the cemetery actually changes with the real season. So if you were to play right now, it would look like winter. And Clair Obscur Expedition 33 won Game of the Year. And you're probably thinking, Zoe, that's not true. You're right. Because this is where the juicy part comes in. Although I'm really disappointed that very few queer games actually took home many of the awards. Although I'm happy to see that some queer people did take home awards. Clair Obscur Expedition 33's team, Sandfall Interactive, admitted to using AI assets as placeholder textures during development, which weren't replaced with human-made assets until after the game released. This actually disqualified them from the Indie Game Awards win. Reading here from the article, the Indie Game Awards have a hard stance on the use of Gen AI throughout the nomination process and during the ceremony itself. Gen AI stands for Generative AI. The statement reads, when it was submitted for consideration, the representatives of Sandfall Interactive agreed that no Gen AI was used in the development of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. In light of Sandfall Interactive confirming the use of Gen AI on the day of the Indie Game Awards 2025 premiere, this does disqualify Clair Obscur Expedition 33 from its nomination. And so Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Sandfall admitted that, they had placeholder textures in development, and they weren't replaced with human-made assets until after the game released. I think I said that before, but just to confirm. And so the debut game ended up going to Story Were Closed, which is another queer game, and Game of the Year went to Blueprints, which I don't think is a queer game, although I've not played Blueprints yet. I think Ekami has, and if you're listening, jump on the Discord and tell me if that was a queer game or not, because there's just too many games. There's too many games. It's a good problem to have, but there are too many games. Take another sip of water. Okay. So, This is our last piece of kind of bad news, is Vince Zampella, Respawn CEO, the studio behind Apex Legends, has passed away at 55. So normally I wouldn't consider sharing CEO death news on the podcast, but this guy was behind the green lights for games like Apex Legends and the Titanfall franchise. And he did die in a freak car accident. I don't know too many of the details, and I don't think it was confirmed whether or not he was driving. And I'd never heard of this person before, just his name specifically. But he oversaw a game which had several queer characters, and we're seeing a lot less of that these days. So one less person in the world who might have greenlit a queer game with queer characters, like Apex Legends, is kind of sad. Also, it's sad that he passed away as well, but again, I know people feel certain ways about CEOs, so I'm not sure how people feel about this. I'm trying to be as nuanced as possible here and say that this is very sad. And may he rest in peace. Okay, that's the last bad news. I have two more good news stories to finish up with. Xbox's January Developer Direct is happening on Thursday, January 22nd. This contains news on games as well as a behind-the-scenes look on how development is going and meeting the devs behind the games. So, 3 games are getting updates in this presentation. The big one is Fable. It will get an update. So, Fable has had queer representation in all 3 of its previous titles. It remains to be seen if this new game is going to have it. I'd say the odds are good, though, since development started well before the current political situation, but things could have changed recently, too, for any number of reasons. The other 2 games that are getting updates are Forza Horizon 6 and the Game Freak game Beast of Reincarnation. Yeah, Game Freak is making a Souls-like for Xbox and PlayStation. I don't understand. But it looks better than Pokemon, like visually better than any Pokemon game they made, so... mildly depressing for Pokemon, especially on its 30th anniversary, but what have you. Anyway... this is happening on January 22nd, which is a Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. UK time. Final story here. This is also another ratings board leak. A new Sims expansion, a new Sims 4 expansion, has been rated in South Korea, and this was found by Sims Time fan site. This was machine translated from Portuguese, so from Korean to Portuguese to English, so there might be a little bit of misinformation or miscommunication here, but I think I've got the gist of it. So this expansion is called The Sims 4, Royalty and Legacy. The description reads, in the 21st expansion for The Sims 4, the players will be able to take on the role of nobles and build dynasties that span generations, focusing on royalty, lineage, and family legacy. So again, like I said before, ratings leaks are almost always accurate, though sometimes there are errors or things are changed or cancelled before an announcement or release. I don't think The Sims 4 expansion has been officially announced yet, and there is currently no release date also, but I'll let you know if and when I hear anything. And that does wrap up the podcast for this week. That's all the news that I have. I will be back next week with guests, with more news, and a segment. All the usual stuff that you're used to. I just kind of wanted to get in front of this Life is Strange stuff and also kind of get some of the news out of the way so next week isn't too bloated, because that was a lot of news stories. I hope you had a great start to your 2026, and I love you all. Bye, True Avatars. I'll see you soon. And that just about wraps up this week's show. Thanks, True Avatars, for joining me for another episode of your Queer Video Game Podcast. By listening to the show, you are supporting queer-made content, which is more important than ever. If you want to support True Avatars, it would be really great if you could leave a comment, rating, or review on your preferred podcast platform. You can follow the show on Blue Sky, Twitter, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube under the handle @TrueAvatars, all one word, and on Facebook and Instagram under True Avatars. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe, as well as hit the notification bell so you can be the first to know when new content drops. I welcome you to check out the official website, trueavatarspodcast.com. That's all one word, trueavatarspodcast.com. On the website, you can sign up for the newsletter, where you can get exclusive news and updates on the show. Bye, True Avatars. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking with you all again next week. Take care and stay safe.